We shouldn't have to keep begging for resources to try to do more with less. These students are deserving of the equal resources that they should have been receiving in the first place. And so that's really what I'm calling for. Is there something we can do? We can't change what the Supreme Court ruled, but we can ensure access to higher education for Black students and equal access by providing equal funding.
So this resourcing, what does it look like? What's the construct, et cetera?
Well, I mean, it's not going to work within the construct, because the construct is that we have always had a two-tier system of education in the United States that has not valued Black students, which have not valued Black institutions. So we have to actually eliminate that construct and say, you know, as I released my statement, I announced that we are creating a visiting professorship in the School of Communications at Howard. And that when we were creating this visiting professorship, I said, let's look at the visiting professorships in journalism at predominantly white schools and see what they pay. Let's see what type of benefits that they give. And we're going to match that. So our visiting professorship in journalism pays what Princeton pays. But Howard doesn't have the endowment that Princeton has, and Howard doesn't have the resources that Princeton has. I've been able to raise money through philanthropy that allows me to match the resources of PWIs, but HBCUs can't do that writ large. So I'm just calling on those who say they care about this issue, who say that they were so disturbed about the Supreme Court's ruling, to put your money where your mouths are, but more importantly, put your money where most Black students are.
When they say that HBCUs are racist, HBCUs were born out of slavery. Many of them were. And they were these schools that were born out of the masters, the white plantation owners, Christianity, if you will, the thought that the slaves should learn about God, correct?
Some of them, right? I mean,
Yeah.
many of them were created right at the end of slavery, often by Northern missionaries and often by Black folks themselves who were determined to get an education because it was illegal for Black Americans.
That's right.
During slavery, most of us to learn how to read and write and have access to education. And so when people say HBCUs are racist, it's clear why the 1619 Project needs to exist, because we have no understanding of our history, of why we have HBCUs in the first place. HBCUs are historically Black colleges and universities. They were born out of at a time when Black people were explicitly excluded from most institutions of higher learning. But the difference between, for instance, a Harvard, a UNC, and a Howard is Howard has always been open to students of all races. There was never a time where HBCUs excluded any student based on race, even as they were created to serve the descendants of slavery. And I believe Howard right now, about 30% of all of those enrolled are not Black. So you only can believe that HBCUs are discriminating if you are ahistoric, if you have no idea of why they were created, and if you understand that they have always admitted students regardless of race. Because the difference between us and the institutions we built is we built institutions to serve our race out of necessity because we were excluded, but we never built institutions to exclude, which is what affirmative action is about, is that these institutions, you know, UNC is the oldest public university in the country, founded in 1780 something. And it wasn't until 1955 with a federal court order that it enrolled its first Black student, even though Black people helped build that university. That matters. This history is all around us. This pattern of exclusion is all around us. But I think, as you know, April, I'm just at a point in my life where I'm tired of begging white institutions to let us in. I know you know that because you have worked in Black media, you continue to work in Black media. Again, we just saw yesterday the sister who was at the University of Texas at Austin, who, much like my experience with UNC Chapel Hill, was offered a tenured position and then had that taken away from her in the most disrespectful of ways when she was trying to get a job at Texas A&M. At some point, those of us who have options have to decide that we're tired of being disrespected. We're tired of trying to force our way into institutions not built for us and that don't want us. And we come home and build our own.
This is why they don't want us to know our history, and they don't want the broader community to know the history, because the truth is something that everybody can't digest and take. And not only that, they don't want our books out because we're telling the truth. And I'm just going to salute you again. You got me bowing down because you speak the truth. I love it, with all the redness and everything with it.
Always happy to talk to you. And you are a trailblazer who's still out here blazing trails. And so many of us have looked to you in your career and the example that you've set and continue to do so. So thank you. Thank you for always highlighting the issues that matter to our community.
My sister, you give me chills, but I appreciate I appreciate you always. Anything else you'd like to add?
I just think, this is a time our country is going through this intense polarization, and so much of the racist sentiment that was below the surface is clearly out in the open. It's being legislated. It's being, ruled through Supreme Court rulings. And so this is just a time for us as Black folks, again, to try to build our own institutions so that we are not as vulnerable to the whims of a white majority that we're going to have to fight for the rest of our lives if we want to have equality.